Well, hello there, watching the press preview, a first look at what is on the front pages. Time then to see what's making the headlines with Pippa Crerar, political editor of The Guardian, and Ryan Sabey, deputy political editor of The Sun. Welcome and great to see both of you. So to the front pages then, let us start with The Times and the resignation of Scotland's First Minister, Humza Yousaf, leads The Times with this headline: SNP lurches into another crisis as its leader quits. The Financial Times says the resignation has triggered chaos, forcing the SNP into a leadership election, with a general election coming soon, of course. Pippa's paper, The Guardian, names former Deputy First Minister John Swinney as the man most likely to step into the job. The Metro sums it up like this: you've only got yourself to blame. The Eye reports on possible cuts to personal independence payment benefits, with the planned introduction of a new 6-tier system for people with disabilities or mental health conditions. Ryan's paper, The Sun, calls for the George Cross to be awarded posthumously to a young woman who died trying to save a friend who'd been stabbed. Daily Mail leads with a warning to teachers to watch out for pupils being targeted in so-called sextortion scams. The Mirror reports on the case of a man who stabbed a pensioner on a mobility scooter to death just days after being released from jail. The Telegraph says the NHS is about to announce that sex is a matter of biological fact, in what the paper says is a significant shift away from gender ideology. And according to The Star, Jeremy Clarkson has declared war on slugs, a blow to the paper's campaign to be nicer to them. A reminder, by scanning the QR code you'll see on screen during the programme, you can check out the front pages of tomorrow's newspapers while you listen to our guests. So let's head to Pippa and to Ryan. Lots of politics to report, dominating most of the newspapers. So let's go to the Financial Times first of all, Pippa. Yousaf triggers turmoil with his exit as Scott's First Minister. Now, you were telling us in the break how you predicted this, just over a year ago?
I think we sat here with Harry Cole, your colleague at The Sun, and discussed when Humza Yousaf took over as First Minister and SNP leader 13 months ago, I think it was. On this programme, Anna, we predicted that he would be lucky to last a year. Well, he's lasted 13 months. And it's not just because of all the internal strife that we've seen going on with the SNP, with the ongoing police investigation into their funding. Obviously, Nicola Sturgeon's husband has been charged with embezzlement. And it is also the domestic political situation in Scotland, the fact that 1 in 6 Scots are on NHS waiting lists, and the education, the international PISA figures about educational performance in Scotland. And it's Humza Yousaf himself. He was regarded as the continuity Sturgeon candidate at a time where that era for the party, some in it felt should come to an end after she'd been in power for so long. And I think is generally regarded as being a pretty nice guy, has charisma, but hadn't been necessarily very effective when it came to running the various portfolios that he was in charge of. And there he took over as First Minister and made some really, ultimately a very poor decision to end the Butte House agreement, the coalition agreement that the SNP had with the Scottish Greens. And that triggered all the drama that we've seen over the last few days, and ultimately his resignation. So, yeah, I mean, I wouldn't necessarily have seen it play out exactly this way, but it did look like it was going to be, a hard task for him to stick around until the next Scottish elections.
Yes, I mean, the FT, talks about the SNP seeking a new start as an election nears, successor to face Labour challenge. The Times picks up on all of that as well. SNP lurches into crisis as its leader quits. But a lot of this is how the Labour Party in a UK general election would benefit from all of this turmoil. And is that how you see it? Because they've got some sort of recent polling as well, they quote.
Yeah, you look at how it, for Sir Keir Starmer, how he's looking at this. Labour currently have 2 MPs north of the border. They are chasing 20, 25 seats up in Scotland, and you can really see what the absolute chaos and the sort of, they haven't seemed to, concentrated as much as what most people would like them to on education or healthcare. They've been concentrating on those sort of minority issues, whether it's on gender or what have you. So I think Sir Keir Starmer does come out of this as the big winner. And you sort of look at Hamza Yousaf talking about, the miscalculation. The guy is just politically naive. You don't pull the rug from under your coalition partner without thinking it through, not thinking through the next step, but 2 or 3 steps ahead. He simply didn't do that.
Interesting. And some suggestion that it was the SNP leader in Westminster who drove this idea of pulling the Greens. He seems to have come out for John Swinney tonight, does he? Which your paper, The Guardian, talks about as, the only viable candidate, do you think, now?
So I think what happened this morning was that when it became clear that Hamza Yousaf was going to stand down, various senior figures within the SNP establishment, and I don't know whether Stephen Flynn, the Westminster leader, was one of those that are given he then backed John Swinney, you might think he might have been, were in touch with both Kate Forbes, who was the finance minister, who came second, very close second to Hamza Yousaf in the last leadership contest 13 months ago, and contacted John Swinney to sound them out. They were the 2 most obvious, there are others, but they were the 2 most obvious candidates to go forward at this point. And there seems to be a sort of coalescing of opinion, not just amongst the continuity Sturgeonites in the party, but also more broadly. John Swinney is well-liked, well-respected, has had his ups and downs over the course of his long career. He's been around since the beginning of the Scottish Parliament. He was, of course, Nicola Sturgeon's Deputy First Minister for a long period. But he is seen as somebody that's a safe pair of hands. And at this point, I think there are many in the SNP that just think we just don't need any drama. We just need to be able to get through to the general election and potentially beyond to the 2026 Scottish elections without anything else going wrong. And even a little bit more than that, if we could potentially shore up our position a little bit, then that that would obviously be the best outcome. And that John Swinney is seen as being, as a safe pair of hands, the best person to do that. Now, I think what's crucial, though, is that he's got a lot going on in his life. He's already taken a step back from the front line of Scottish politics. And I think there's a feeling amongst those around him that he doesn't want or need the sort of, the cutthroat of a leadership contest against Kate Forbes. So if he's going to go for it, it would probably have to be as a unity candidate. So if she then says, I'm going to go for it, then, the prospect's off the table. So it relies on her saying, you know what, now's not my time, I'll hold back. So
it's a coronation. And the SNP have been the first to throw dirt towards the Tories of yet another Prime Minister in charge of the country without a general election. So is that awkward for them or not? That's
I think it's realpolitik for them. They don't have any other option, do they? They've got rid of Hamza Yousaf, or he's got rid of himself.
Anna Sarwar tonight, the Labour leader in Scotland, he's saying you just can't have that third leader elected in the party without elections. That's what he's calling for.
So which takes us to is there going to be a no confidence vote on presumably Wednesday? Labour certainly keeping their powder dry on whether or not they're still going to push for that. The Greens seem to suggest they won't vote against the SNP. So what would be the point of having it? Because the idea for Labour would be surely that you drive through a new election.
If it feels like the SNP can get through the next few months and they can get to the next leader, you would think the Greens will either abstain or vote with them. You kind of think they would probably save themselves from the sort of the embarrassment of actually losing that. So I think if you're going to go for that no confidence vote, you have to be pretty sure and guarantee that you're going to win it, or at least have it come pretty close.
Yeah, and where will this leave the SNP? The number of times I heard we are a proudly progressive party today, and yet someone like Kate Forbes is seen as socially conservative. The drive, as you said, to gender identity issues, to net zero targets that looked wildly ambitious and now undeliverable, as we've found out, possibly driven partly by the Green Party and their partnership. Do they come back to the centre? Do they stay proudly progressive? And if so, how does that shake up the vote against Labour in a general election?
So I think she wouldn't thank me, I suppose, for making this comparison, nor would he. But I think what Nicola Sturgeon and Boris Johnson had in common was that they were able to hold together a coalition of extremes in their party.
Broad church again, yes?
Broad church again, exactly. And in Nicola Sturgeon's case, she was obviously incredibly progressive, took great pride in the fact that she was a great champion of trans rights, that they pushed net zero targets way beyond what was happening in the rest of the UK, and that's obviously ultimately what led to the fall this time around by watering down those targets. But when I grew up in the 1980s in Scotland, the SNP were known as the Tartan Tories, and then there is that more socially conservative element within the SNP, of which Kate Forbes is the most obvious standard bearer. And what I think we're seeing now is that sort of unified force which came together under the umbrella of fighting for independence, which for some time seemed like it was potentially, it was a tangible and if not immediate aim, it was something which they could see happening in the near future rather than, for generations hence. That held them together. And I think what has happened is that as the promise of independence and self-determination has got further away, people may still want it in Scotland, many of them, but the actual reality of it happening looks remote. Now that Sturgeon, its greatest champion, is gone, and other factors too, the party is now starting to focus on other issues, and it's falling apart.
So we feel with Nicola Sturgeon, she had the pandemic that she managed to get herself through there, and that great sort of status. And then you've also got that sort of cult-like figure around her, and it just seemed like the music stopped with Humza Yousaf, and he didn't have that baggage to actually say, get around the other problems in Scotland, whether it's education or healthcare or whatever it may well be. So I just feel like the music stopped with him. Nicola Sturgeon was able to carry it through, but Humza Yousaf just didn't have the political sort of might to do that.
Well, there you go. You talked about the miscalculation that you mentioned. You've only got yourself to blame. Sacking the Greens when they'd already said they were reassessing the relationship. You could have gone out amicably, possibly. And we'll certainly keep an eye on what happens later this week. It's going to be absolutely fascinating. Have I got time for one more? Just quickly. Very quickly. Front page of the Times, I go back to that. This is the right-hand column. Over half of migrants set for Rwanda are missing. Ryan.
Yeah, the Times have got hold of a document that basically identifies 5,500 or so migrants that have been identified for removal, but it only seems that just over 2,000 of them are actually continuing to report to the Home Office and immigration centres to actually keep tabs of them. So I think the bigger picture really is, as long as Rishi Sunak can find half a dozen and get them on a plane to Rwanda, his quid's in, and actually he'll see this as a major success. But it's slightly worrying when you've got 2,000 or 3,000 of these migrants actually sort of roaming free. Now there was the suggestion that the free accommodation and a sort of £49 weekly allowance they had to collect would actually keep tabs on these people, but it seems the threat of deportation has far outweighed that. So.
You're going to track them down in that tent city in Dublin, really? Is that the idea?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. OK, lots more stuff to come in the next part of our programme, including this in the Mail. Its headline, all schools warned on the sextortion epidemic, as they put it. Back with that in just a moment. Welcome back. You are watching the Press Preview. With me once again, Pippa Crerar, political editor of The Guardian, and Ryan Sabey, deputy political editor of The Sun. Welcome back to both of you. Let's go inside the Times then, Ryan, shall we? And this is the prospect of a deal over Gaza. Very generous, is how some of the leaders are reporting it, including David Cameron. We're hearing that Hamas has now left Cairo to report back, presumably. So bring us up to date with where we're at on this one and what people think Israel and Hamas should do.
Yeah, David Cameron, Lord Cameron, he's been out to the Middle East 11 times now since he became Foreign Secretary, just to show the emphasis and how much emphasis there needs to actually to solve this. And one of the issues coming up is that they want to do a sort of hostages for Palestinian prisoners swap. So that's going to be sort of a key point of this. So all these foreign ministers have all been meeting to try and solve it. But it does seem like, as you say, the Hamas leaders have gone back to report on whether they can accept this deal or not. Anthony Blinken has said this is a deal that's on, it's a deal that's on the table, and it should really take it after weeks and weeks of negotiations. So. He says he hopes they make the right choice on this. Yes,
Hamas has before it a proposal that is extraordinarily generous on the part of Israel. This is your reporting in The Guardian, or your paper's reporting. It's very difficult to have any statement like that when you're still being bombed, isn't it? That's the prospect they've.
Yeah, and I mean, I think ultimately Israel is now at a point where they're under intense pressure, both domestically about the fate of the remaining hostages that are held in Gaza, but also internationally about the scale of their response and the humanitarian crisis which is unfurled. And we've seen, obviously, those shocking images of children suffering from malnutrition, being starved in Gaza. And this deal, which, various iterations of it have been under discussion for weeks and they've not come to a conclusion. So I think, sadly, Gaza watchers are kind of, hopeful that there's a breakthrough. Obviously, everyone wants this conflict to end, but also that is tinged with realism. And, you know, Ryan said there's suggestions that the Israelis would accept 33 hostages, the release of 33 hostages in return for Palestinian prisoners who are currently in Israeli jails, that there'd be a period of sustained calm is the latest terminology they're using, in, you know, the sort of ceasefire terminology, that Palestinians would be allowed home to northern Gaza, which obviously has been absolutely reduced to rubble in some quarters, and that the troops, the Israeli troops, which are currently in that corridor right across the middle of Gaza, would withdraw. The Hamas tonight, as you say, looks like they've gone back to discuss it, but there also is a lot of international pressure on them that you know, they need to be able to withdraw from Gaza for there to be really a proper two-state solution, which they obviously don't believe in.
Two quick stories. Daily Mail, first of all, if you don't mind, I'll read this one.
Yep.
It comes from the National Crime Agency, has warned all 570,000 primary and secondary teachers across Britain that children as young as 5 are at risk of sextortion scams. Really interesting, that. We'll talk about it later. And very quickly as well, Ukraine's royal surprise. The Duchess of Edinburgh, Ryan, the first member of the royal family to head there.
Yeah, the security operation itself, just to get a sort of a leading royal out there, would have been quite incredible. You have to take the overnight train from Poland just to get there. But I think one thing this also shows about Sophie Wessex is the fact that she's one of the sort of underreported royals. You know, she's the person who's getting on with the day job.